Hello, welcome to our workshops on the Bach cello suites. Today, in this very modest hotel room, there is a little bit of background noise, but I hope it will not bother us and that we can still go in the subject of the day, which will be the Allemande from the fourth suite. First, I want to give you a little apologize for cancelling very short term last week. Uh, Nothing dramatic, but I couldn't do the workshop and I had to postpone it. And thank you for the messages of those of you who missed it. And I will try to be again very regular in the future. Before we talk about the Allemande and then go to our guest, who is a wonderful friend and an amazing musician, Sokratis Sinopoulos, who plays the Greek Lyra, and he will tell us a little bit about this and about many other things. And before we go to this, I want to do a follow-up of the last episode, because before the last episode, I had received a question by Alessandro Mastracci, which was about tempis in general and but he was mentioning preludes in particular. So I wanted to, and last time, if you remember, I got carried away and I spent 30 minutes talking about the prelude from the fourth suite because I'm so, so crazy about that piece. And then there was no time to deal with that question. So here is the question from Alessandro. Hi, I'm Alessandro. I would like to know your thoughts about the tempi in Bach's cello suites, especially in the preludes. I discovered from a video of Peter Wispelwy that in one of the manuscripts, the prelude of the third suite has the marking presto. Like in some of the sonatas and partitas for violin, the point of Wispelwy was that even if Bach or Anna Magdalena didn't write any of that for a contemporary copyist, I think Kellner, it was evident that the tempo had to be presto. There aren't any similar indications in the fourth suite, but can we do a similar process of thinking and assume some information about this matter from the score? Thank you very much. Hope not to be redundant question. Not at all, dear Alessandro. And to hear your reply. So, dear Alessandro, in this matter, obviously, I'm going to give my very subjective answer. Some colleagues, and you mentioned one of my dear friends and amazing colleague, Peter Wispelwy, and who has recorded the suites already 3 times and told us on this workshop not long ago that he would like to do it 4 more times. So really, probably nobody has been grabbing for information and going into the suites more than he has. And so he's the search for tempo indications is absolutely legitimate. In my experience, before going to the preludes, I will talk about the dances. I want to enjoy and use the fact that Bach is not giving indications such as allegro, adagio, andante or something, or presto, to go at it in a much more organic way. This is the way I feel it. So talking about the dances, obviously going with the dance, how is this dance in general grooving? How could actually a body motion, because this is what Bach gives us. He gives us in fact a tempo indication by giving us a relationship between what he's composing, the sarabande, the allemande, the courante, etc., the relationship of these pieces with something that is related to dance, something that is related to how we move. So basically, I would say our best indicator, or this is the way I go at it and the way I recommend to my student, the best indicator for us, the best information, source of information for us, is our body, is how can I move on a, what gives me what makes my body move naturally, but also dynamically, in a way that brings life to this music. I hope not to be too elusive, but and what I like about this is, first of all, that I think that the tempo, to look for the tempo this way, um, is it's going to be much more a better incarnation. So it's going to be more lively. That's what I hope. And on top of that, this is going to very naturally bring each version of this sarabande or of this allemande, of this chord, to be different, because everybody is also everybody. I unintentionally separated this, but everybody has a different body. So indeed, the way we are made will bring us naturally to find um, other impulses, other mood, and also other speed. Now, about the preludes, obviously they are not dances. So some of the preludes do have a sort of dancing quality, and I think the one you mentioned, the third one, does make us feel a little bit like a courante or something in this direction. It's in three, and the first and the third beat are the most decisive, let's say. So there is everybody suggests to go in this direction, but still it's not dancing. And I think definitely there is something about all these 16th notes that they carry us away. To be honest, for me, the idea of, before playing it, of to think of presto is not an inspiring one. It's one that I feel reluctant to take this for myself, because it gives a quality of something, of moto perpetuo. If there is a movement that immediately comes to my mind that could relate to presto, for example, it would be the courante from the second suite, which has this sort of uh, very dramatic quality. But so as you see already now at this point, if I start thinking about this prelude of the third suite that you mentioned, I don't feel obliged to agree with Kellner, who apparently wrote this in his manuscript. And so I would, to try to sum it up, I would stay away from looking for these indications, and I would rather say what is the margin, with the Spielraum in German, in which uh, this movement or this movement could be. That obviously, if you start looking at the prelude of the first suite, which is in 4, but where the motive is half bars, you will want to have you will want this 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 to breathe. And obviously, I don't think you will have the temptation to play because you will want this breathing. If you go at it correctly, if you try to get the information that the composer gives you. So it's in 4, but the motive is half bars. So I need this half bar breathing because the composer gives it to me. That's an example. The one we discussed last time, the 4th suite. It's in this case it's in 2, and it's obviously going to the there is also in the line there is falling, and then there is a half bar feeling that is very strong, that also I find clearly gives us an indication of where it could be. There will be variations from depending who is playing. So sorry for developing so much on this subject, but it was important to me to make a point about this, that for me, if I try to think adagio or presto or allegro, it would just not feel right. So, and now let's go to our Allemande. This Allemande from the fourth suite, like the one from the third suite, I think I told you in this workshop when we talked about the Allemande of the third suite that I had for a while, it was one that puzzled me. I had difficulty to find my story and my how to this quite this very colorful story where a lot is happening in terms of melodic and everything. So very developing, and it's the same thing here with the Allemande from the fourth suite. And sometimes I remember being puzzled by how melodic and subtle the line was, so that I had difficulty to feel the pulse. And this is why I put in the title of this episode that I wanted to talk about the fact that the more the music is melodic and seemingly unvertical, you actually need to relate a lot to a bass line, which will give you this harmonic relationship to the melody, and that will help you to do your phrasing. So let me play the beginning a little bit. First of all, I want to mention that that's so nice that Bach, how he puts the relationship between this Allemande and the prelude we just said. So the prelude, as you remember, it's only arpeggios going down, these falling arpeggios. And here we are going to have scales. So not arpeggios, but of course we are going to visit the same line that we had in the prelude. So in this first bar, it's very clear how basically it's an ornamented version of our prelude. So let's play a little bit. So already in this seemingly very simple presentation of the theme of what this Allemande is going to be, I need as a player to feel that my bass line is going to be half bars, and I'm going, and this groove of the bass line is going to be represented in my timing and in my contact with the sound. So, and what I mean, I don't need to repeat this, I will do it very quickly, that what it gives us is that you should play your line as if a friend of yours was playing this bass line there. So you sure, please play now E flat. So this knowing, being conscious of this bass note allows me to be in contact at the moment of this bass note and be freer and swing in between. This is a good example here. You know, these after the A flat, the three next notes, they can just be free. We can fly, and that's what we are looking for when we play. By the way, it's a beautiful sequence there. So another example of this, actually a very important one. For years, I didn't know how to play the next passage, which is only 16th notes for 2.5 bars, and not only 6 but they go a bit like if they were going around themselves and not knowing where to go. So I intentionally now played them like something that would just be a line to show you how problematic it is, because then one could think, well, maybe Bach wasn't such a good melodist after all. But actually, if you marry this with a virtual bass line, suddenly it makes a lot of sense, particularly the relationship between the fourth beat and the next downbeat, which seem to be the same but have a totally different function because they are on different beats and because the bass note underneath is another one. So the ambiguity of what seems to be the same thing and how it is totally transformed by the implied bass note is, I find, then it becomes particularly good music and particularly interesting. Now we come here to a wonderful bass line, a long rising bass line. So we have had almost a whole octave of a rising scale in the bass, and Bach he illustrates it by a dialogue between the voices, that every uneven bass note is going to be played from above, you remember, and then from the bass note, which is